Marvel's The Fantastic Four First Steps is finally in theaters, so that means it's time for us to go into full spoilers. So that's exactly what I'll be doing here for you guys, is giving you my spoiler review for The Fantastic Four, breaking down the things I love, didn't love about the movie, some of the Easter eggs and connections to the overall bigger Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as the post-credit scene and what it could mean for Avengers Doomsday. But it's not just about my opinion. I want to know your thoughts down below, as well as your theories to what you think they're going to do with the Fantastic Four in future installments. But alright, kicking things off, just to reiterate my thoughts, I thought this was a slam dunk. I honestly think Marvel knocked it out of the park, and I came out really loving this movie. Ever since the early 2000 Fantastic Four movies, I've always just really enjoyed the characters, and even with the several iterations that we've had, it's crazy that there wasn't a definitive version, but I thought this is the closest we're going to get. Not just that, but they also brought us a unique creative atmosphere with this retro-futuristic aesthetic. All four members of the team shared great chemistry with each other, and even individually, they all had moments to shine. It's kind of the way I felt when I walked out of Shang-Chi, where I was like, dude, I cannot wait to see these guys start interacting with people in the MCU. But also, I was thinking, I actually don't know if I want them in the MCU, because I like their world a little bit more than ours. Oh, we're gonna dive into that more, so let's just start off with the beginning. Okay, so the movie kicks off with Reed and Sue in their house. They kind of do a little bit of the stuff I love from the older Fantastic Four movies, where you just kind of see them in their everyday life and treat them like ordinary people. Seeing Reed fix up his suit on the bed, looking through the bathroom for some medicine while Sue's over there just be like, hang on honey, I'll be right there. And then revealing to us that Sue is pregnant and that they've been trying for 2 years and they were about to give up. They figured with their superhero life, it just wasn't in the cards for them and they were going to be okay with that. And that alone instantly sold me on the relationship between Reed and Sue. I think Pedro and Vanessa Kirby have really good chemistry with one another. Before I start splurging on each member of the Fantastic Four, that then cuts us into the kind of quick origin that the movie provides to us. So they give us the rundown, which I honestly think is such a perfect way to do it, through a televised event that tells us all the basic information we need to know. They're astronauts, went up in space, had an accident, were gifted with powers, and we see a little bit of their adventures. And that stuff made me smile, dude. Just seeing Mr. Fantastic use his stretchy powers to fight an orangutan and then knock him into the harbor, peak. Sue Storm saving people with her powers, Ben Grimm knocking some people down, even Johnny using his flames to stop a fire. They even recreated the first cover of the Fantastic Four. All right, hot take. I think the Little Caesars pizza ad ended up looking better visual effects wise than what we saw in the movie. That just might be me speaking, but this Little Caesars ad is not in the actual movie. The scene of the Fantastic Four recreating their comic cover looks different in the actual movie, but I think the Little Caesars ad did it better. Still really cool that they did that. It just really helped me establish and build this world so much quicker. Because yeah, we find out this is Earth 828, which really doesn't have a huge connection in the comics. It's not like it's the Ultimate Universe or another popular alternate reality in the Marvel comics. It's just kind of an Earth made up for this. I'm gonna be so real. Before I saw this movie and the promotions, I kind of was bummed out that the Fantastic Four would be on their own Earth. Now I've completely turned around on that, where I think that's the best part of this movie and allowed me to just enjoy it so much more. Because really, the production design is so gorgeous. They got the same person who would work on the production design for the Loki series, so that looks very similar to the TVA stuff, but all the tech, the costumes, the city, I love this universe. I don't know what Marvel's plans is come after Doomsday or Secret Wars, but since Feige's already confirmed a reset and a reboot, if they want to keep this aesthetic in the newly rebooted MCU, not gonna complain. Not at all. I even thought the celebrity aspect of the Fantastic Four was handled well here. That's something that was like completely absent in Fan Four Stick. I think them being looked at as celebrities is a huge part of the Fantastic Four, and so getting cutaways of people trying to guess the gender of their baby, when's the due date, seeing cartoons, ads, and merchandise involving them, honestly loved all of that. But after all this fun and them starting to prepare for getting ready for the baby, where they start baby-proofing the house, and even Reed Richards starts baby-proofing the world, where they call out a bunch of different Fantastic Four villains from the comics. You know, they mentioned Red Ghost, who was cut out of this movie. John Malkovich was supposed to physically be in the role and command these orangutans for some sort of mission, but they also mentioned people like Mad Thinker, Puppet Master, and a criminal named Diablo. I'll tell you something, dude. The Fantastic Four are so good at their jobs, This world don't need an Avengers. Dude, they are just nailing it down every second they go. But immediately, that's then where Shalabal comes in, lets them know the world is marked for death, and things get way more depressing, way more dark, and I honestly love that tone. They found such a great way to like still embrace their comic book campy side, but have such a serious vibe and the stakes feeling so high because this planet isn't in the MCU. A lot of us were thinking it was going to be destroyed by the end of this movie. And heck, I was still thinking it was probably going to get blown up at some point in the film. And the movie does such a good job of just dangling that carrot of dread, of everyone dying around them, that it made me so glued to the story, as opposed to where if this film had already been set in the MCU, it wouldn't have worked. Of course, you would have had all the Avengers and every hero helping the Fantastic Four. You also know that there's no way Galactus would destroy the MCU Earth. Like, there was just so many factors of why setting in its own separate Earth made it work so much better. But in this moment of dread, a lot of the characters really got to shine. So first, I want to start off with them heading off into space to go talk to Galactus. This entire space sequence, dude, amazing. Marvel more sequences like this. On the edge of my seat, eyes glued. It was non-stop thrill ride. This was honestly the best part of the movie, and I've seen it twice now, and this has still been my favorite thing about the entire movie. One, because it's a really great showcase of their dynamic as a team. We get to feel how they are individually, but here, in this space sequence, when they're talking to one another, Ben is steering the Excelsior and calling out to Reed when he's like, I don't know what to do. Reed, Johnny, Herbie. All those moments so well executed, and everybody had something to do. Reed is quick to think on his feet when he's like, oh, save the engines. And he saves the engines. And he's like, Sue, cover us. Sue covers us. It just so quickly showed us like, dude, yeah, these guys have been doing it for 4 years. They do trust one another, and they work so well and in sync. But they actually get to witness a planet being devoured by Galactus, which I thought was really important because they need to know that this guy is for real, is not just talk, and immediately get hit with Shala Ball and a laser shining some the interior design of Galactus's ship, like there was even coils that looked like it was DNA. That's how small the Fantastic Four were to Galactus, that there's things in his ship that just resemble his DNA strands. But it was such an awesome way to show scale, the threat, and presence of Galactus. Ralph Fiennes's voice really carries over, and the entire theater basically rumbles every time he talks. But this is where he lets them know it's like, oh, dude, that little baby in your belly could free me, giving us some insight into this Galactus. So Shala Ball lets us know that Galactus is like a being as important as the stars themselves. He doesn't do this out of wanting to. He's basically cursed with this hunger, and he's just constantly hungry, needing to devour planets. And even the way he devours them I thought was interesting. It's like a planet gets blown up, thrown in this incinerator, becomes lava, and through these lava tubes, it goes into his body, almost like Bane in his Venom. But when he notices Sue Storm is pregnant with Franklin Richards, he realizes that's a cosmic being. It has the strength to take my position, and I can finally be free from all of this. Another thing, I was really skeptical and not really wanting to be part of the Fantastic Four because I'm aware of Franklin's abilities and powers in the comics. He's such an overpowered character. He can literally create universes, alter reality, is so unbelievably strong that a character like that isn't that interesting to me. It just feels like an easy way to solve problems nonstop. So when Marvel was going to introduce Franklin in the first Fantastic Four movie as a baby, and knowing that they're probably planning a trilogy or something more down the line, I was like, it's too soon, man. Save that for like the end of their story or something. But Franklin's cosmic capabilities actually ended up being such a really good plot device. It led to a lot of great moments I love in the movie. Didn't lead to some great CGI, because let's just be honest, that CGI, baby, whoo! But the negotiation doesn't go well. The Fantastic Four refuse. They rush back to their ship. And again, that super suspenseful, on the edge of your seat space sequence continues with them trying to get rid of the Silver Surfer, who's just inches away from grabbing Franklin away from Sue. All at the same time, they're in this wormhole. Johnny can't even shoot the Silver Surfer. I love that they added that. I hate when movies just like conveniently have a quick fix, and Johnny there having a cannon to shoot off the Silver Surfer, but oh dang, space, and it's curving the laser, and Johnny even says to himself, okay, figure this out. Good stuff. Ben over there is just trying to get away while Reed's in the back figuring out a plan. He's like, all right, go to this black hole and we're going to do something crazy. There's even layers to that moment where like Ben tells him, he's like, that's a black hole. If we don't get out of that, we're stuck for years. And Reed has to tell Ben, trust me. When earlier in the movie, they established and they've had this heart to heart where Reed does weigh in on the guilt that they have these powers. Sure, it led them to celebrityism, all this fame, all this money, but he hasn't forgotten what it did to Ben and the way it left him, and it does eat away at Reed. You can see that. He brings it up. Because of a miscalculation, we ended up like this. So then to bring it to a scene where they're again in space, Ben is depending on the calculations of Reed, and Reed has the nerve to turn to Ben and say, trust me, and Ben accepts. They nailed the Fantastic Four team dynamic, dude. And in IMAX, dude, all that looks so beautiful when the Silver Surfer actually gets like trapped into the black hole and she's like, that was awesome. All right, but since I finished splurging with that, I do want to talk individually with each character and then we'll get on some of the bigger parts. So let's start off with Reed Richards, Pedro Pascal. I also flinched, or I thought to myself, really? Pedro is Reed Richards? I don't know if I like Pedro Pascal, but I just don't see him as Reed. Absolutely prove me wrong. They nailed the mannerisms and the complexity of the character of Reed Richards so well, because that is a really hard, complicated character to nail down. Reed is someone so profoundly smart and intellectual in the comics, he can sometimes come off as a bit of a jerk, but he's still a good guy, a leader, and a member of the Fantastic Four that does have the world's best interest at heart. We already have a lot of jerk, heroic characters like a Doctor Strange or a Tony Stark. Throwing in another one similar like that I think would be so lazy for the MCU, but they got him down. Reed Richards in this is honest to a fault, to where when he came back after that space adventure, which was a month for planet Earth, but it was only like a couple hours for them, he is so honest that he told the people of Earth, it's like, Galactus wanted our baby, and we said no. And it even does the funny thing of like, oh, we obviously said no. Why are you guys yelling right now? We said no, all right? Not even realizing that'd be a really controversial thing to let the world know. So like, I've seen people complain like, Reed's so smart, why would he even tell the world that? That's who he is. He's an honest man who doesn't lie. And he even has that great conversation with his wife, Sue Storm, about like, I don't want to give up Franklin. I'm just mentioning that is a possibility. It is a logical way to go, but it's not something I want to do. It's my job to think of these horrible things to protect the people I love. That was Reed Richards. And with Pedro's acting, I fully bought into every time he was bringing up some science mumbo jumbo jargon. It didn't feel just like regurgitated or read off the paper. When he's bringing up that Archimedes lever thing, I was like, oh, Archimedes lever. Yes, of course. Give him a lever and he'll goon. There was even such a beautiful moment with Reed because he's like struggling to figure out, okay, does my baby have powers? What are these cosmic abilities that Galactus is talking about? And there was a moment where like Sue was able to like show him the baby in her belly. Great unique use of Invisible Woman's powers. But I was even feeling a little odd when Reed would like put his baby in a machine, have it scanned and analyzed like it was some sort of guinea pig and test subject. But then it came full circle where Reed's like, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to try and analyze you anymore. I'm going to wait for you, my baby, to let me know. And there's even that funny moment where he's like, so if you're a big old cosmic monster, I'd like for you to tell me now, please. Beautiful, sweet stuff. Like, I love the Reed thing. The only issue I have with Reed, and it's one of my biggest nitpick complaints, next time we see Reed Richards, and usually the Russo brothers are kind of good about this stuff. I know they've messed up the Hulk. Every time they have like Tom Holland Spider-Man, they nail down his performance along with other MCU characters. I'm hoping in like Doomsday or Secret Wars, Reed gets a lot more interesting stuff to do, because all this movie, it was just long arm stretch, long leg stretch. No uniqueness to it, man. I mean, like Reed in the comics has done things where like he can even stretch his vocal cords so he can match the voice of anybody. He could also change his face to look like anybody. Like there's honestly a lot of cool uses for Reed Richards' powers. I'm hoping they do that more next time. But that's kind of one of the things this movie was actually shining in. It wasn't relying too much on the action or set pieces. That's a lot of the complaints I have been seeing with this movie, that it's lacking a lot of that stuff and it's mainly dialogue. But I found all of that riveting. Getting on to the next best lead in this, so Vanessa Kirby, I know there was those rumors that she was like going to be the leader in here. She is not. It's very clearly still Reed Richards, but that's not to say her perspective and viewpoint in the movie isn't important, because I loved this mother angle they gave her. I think it's widely known that Sue is the strongest of the Fantastic Four, and man, does this movie prove that. But Vanessa Kirby pulls off some really great scenes, specifically when she's giving birth in the ship and she's like talking to Reed, everything's going to change. What if he's a monster, to her phasing back and forth. Like, Vanessa Kirby stuff was good. A lot of stuff I want to talk about with Invisible Girl will be focusing the final battle in this movie. So let's move on to Johnny Storm, which kind of surprised me how well they used him. A lot of people are making fun of the beginning of the movie where like Reed's like, so I assembled the best minds, my wife, her brother, and my friend. But Johnny has always been hints that he is intelligent. He's just immature. He's just a bit of a fun guy. And I felt like they struck the perfect balance here. He does have this fascination with space. He is an astronaut at heart, but just because he is a smart guy doesn't mean he has to act like a nerd. He's very funny, knows he's a ladies' man, and I thought there was a perfect amount of back and forth between him and the Thing where they were chummy with each other, but it never came off mean-spirited. I have a soft spot for the Chris Evans and the Michael Chiklis relationship from the earlier Fantastic Four movies, but you gotta admit, Chris Evans in those movies was very mean-spirited, was asking some really crazy out there personal questions about the Thing's sex life.
How do you guys,
That's none of your business.
Okay. It was just straight up bullying. Here, it felt like a brotherly dynamic where they do go back and forth, but there's a clear love there and they are best friends. So that was a nail in that. But the extra thing that they give him in this movie is since he has interactions with Shia LaBeouf and Reed has been collecting all these transmissions from space and different planets of unknown languages, which Johnny is fascinated with because he loves space and he's been upset that they haven't gone back to space since their accident, to the point like he bugs Reed about it and he's like, come on, man, I'd like to go back up there. Let's do it. Well, in that scene when they're in space and it feels like it's some MCU BS humor of like, oh, I'm the Human Torch, so I'm gonna rizz up the Silver Surfer because she got chrome boobies. You could see it that way, but it's clearly him using his charm to get the intellectual answer he's looking for. He's like, hey, that phrase you gave me earlier, what does it mean? Obviously needing a couple of phrases decoded so then he can decode the rest of her language. And even the other question about like, is that board attached to you? Again, might seem like a dumb joke, but that's the scientist in him wanting questions answered to try and figure out how to defeat this thing. And that ended up working in his favor because he ends up spending months decoding a message, which even also shows he's smart, but he's not that smart because even his sister, Invisible Woman, says, oh, we can give this to Reed and he can make an algorithm real quick, where Reed probably could have figured it out in an afternoon. But Johnny's like, no, he's got other things to worry about. Let me handle this problem. And I love that they added that. It makes Johnny more than just the funny charmer of the group. Even several times throughout the movie, he's like willing to sacrifice himself. He tells Shia LaBeouf, take me instead. I thought he was gonna die in that final battle where he's like, tell Franklin Uncle Johnny loves him. I was like, oh, what? So again, a casting choice I was iffy on, Joseph Quinn. He nailed it. He was awesome. It was really the Thing that got like the short end of the stick. They do little hints of him, you know, not loving his appearance, wanting to find love. They even create this original character just for the movie, played by Natasha Lyonne. I'm curious why they went with an original character route. Maybe they just didn't want to replicate the relationship of the blind woman from the earlier movies, but they didn't really get to do much there. And in fact, that's another complaint people have had, and I kind of will agree with them. It does feel like there is a lot chopped up from this movie. People have even gone back and watched the trailers for this film and have seen that there's a lot of scenes or just alternate shots that didn't make the final cut. If I'm being honest with you, a lot of those scenes I feel are fine, like specifically this one.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week, Sunday at 7 on the dot, no matter what.
That isn't needed. They establish in the movie, Ben and Johnny were like, oh, they never miss Sunday dinners.
We're never late for Sunday dinner. Should we wait?
That's like a show don't tell sequence, and I'm glad they avoided that, where it's like, we're such a good family, always have Sunday dinner. But instead of just telling it to us, they showed it to us, so I'm fine with things like that being cut out. I do wonder though about like the Red Ghost sequences with John Malkovich, how big of a part of the movie that was going to be, and whether the quick flashes of Greed fighting the orangutan was actually a longer sequence in the movie. Maybe like Red Ghost was trying to stop their launch to Galactus or something. I don't know, but although I can definitely feel this movie was cut up and there are some things missing, and I so would have been fine if the movie was like 20-30 minutes longer because I was loving this world so much, I feel the movie is still very efficient and does exactly what it needs to do without missing a beat and just going with the rhythm of the story. So I was fine with some of that. Before I get on to talk about Silver Surfer and Galactus in that big final battle, I do want to bring up the other character that was randomly thrown into the movie, Mole Man. This was played by Paul Walter Hausen, and dude, he only got like 2 scenes, but they were the funniest scenes of this entire movie. They didn't have a lot of comedy, little sprinkles of it here and there. To me, it's like the perfect amount, and I would be so happy if Marvel stayed on this type of tone, keeping the story mainly serious, letting those moments breathe and not having them be cut off by a random gag. Really love the tone in this one. But he shows up because Reed devises a plan where he's going to use a teleportation machine that he's been working on. He thinks the best way to maybe defeat Galactus is just transporting the entire Earth. And that's a crazy plan in itself.
We should take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else.
Say that again?
You know, with the black hole sequence, space, and all that, I felt like this movie was doing a good job of keeping things grounded, but I couldn't help but to think of all the, like, weird anomalies of moving a planet to another solar system. Reed does say that he'd move it to a solar system within the 2% margin of making life capable. Okay. I still feel like there's a lot of boxes that need to be checked for that, but it's still crazy plan that Reed and them almost succeeded in transporting an entire planet. Like, baller move. Who needs the Avengers when these guys are on it? I know I'm supposed to be talking about Mole Man, but I'm getting caught up on things I still liked about that movie. And even that section, the whole having to bring the entire world together and united for a common cause. I know that's mopey and it's cheesy. I liked it, especially in the time we live in today. I feel like we need stuff like that. The Superman movie was really good about giving us that feeling of hope and joy. I did like in all the depressiveness and dreary that Fantastic Four had, there was that silver lining of like, hey, we all live here. We all want to survive and we got to work together. And so tying it back to Mole Man, although this is an enemy of the Fantastic Four from the comics, in the beginning of the movie, during their montage and fights, they showed like Mole Man tried to steal a Pan Am building and make it part of his underground world, Subterranea, which he rules. But Sue Storm, who has gotten into politics and has created the Future Foundation, another thing from the comics brought in there, she's really good at negotiating, has created peace around the globe. Like, again, the Fantastic Four are just running things. It so sucks they're gonna have to come into the MCU and be like, dang, y'all need this many heroes, huh? But as is a lot of times in the comics, Mole Man is soft on Sue Storm. A lot of people seem to be soft on Sue. I never really even saw it as he has a crush on Sue. It's just more that she's nice to him and he's just lived a whole life of people being mean. But dude, he was so funny when he was telling Reed, I want to hear it from him and I want him to butter me up. Doing this gesture to somebody is crazy, dude. He even tells Johnny, hey, I didn't dress you today. Even when they're in the underground lair and he's like, please wipe your feet. Just kidding. It's all dirt. I want more Mole Man. Great. But okay, getting on now to the final battle. Silver Surfer obviously was like such a threatening, great part of the movie. This is the Shala Ball interpretation, which I was kind of upset in her backstory and flashback when she reveals how she ended up working for Galactus, making it sound like she was an astronomer, so she agreed to be a scout for Galactus, looking for planets for him to devour. That we didn't get a Norrin Rad mention or look. I'm thinking that's maybe because they probably still plan to bring in Norrin Rad for the main MCU, but they haven't actually cast the role or they don't know who they want yet, and they didn't want to commit to an actor just for like a 5-second cameo in this movie. So instead, they mainly focus on the motherly angle that she had a child, and that way it connects with Sue and her child trying to save it. But in the older Fantastic Four movie, I did think it was rushed, and I didn't buy into the Silver Surfer turning on Galactus and saving the team, and a lot of his backstory was tell, not showing, so he just had to believe it's like, oh, I had a wife that looked just like you, Jessica Alba, and damn, I wanted to save her.
You remind me of her.
Here with showing us the backstory and with Johnny doing that whole sequence where he actually shows her the message of her planet thanking her for what she did, but then the sounds of all the other planets that have died thanks to her really did sell me on her turning on Galactus and wanting to help them. That's where I think they definitely improved over the Norrin Rad version in the early Rise of the Silver Surfer movie. Now, Galactus, I already talked about how amazing he is. Since Silver Surfer disappears, he has to be the one to get down on Earth, grab Franklin themselves, where the Fantastic Four are using their last teleporter that isn't destroyed to hopefully just send him across the galaxy to the far ends of the world without a ship to solve their problem. Okay, so I've actually seen a lot of complaining about the final act, and I guess a lot of stuff bugging people does not bug me. People were saying it was very anticlimactic, that the battle between Galactus and the Fantastic Four just wasn't all that. A lot of conveniences and easy plot points. I don't know what y'all were watching. That was awesome. Like, this is still Galactus, and the movie did the perfect balance of finding a way to defeat him without actually killing or destroying him. If they actually did manage to like kill Galactus or, I don't know, blow him up or something like that, I actually would have been pissed with that, because Galactus is this all-powerful universal being, and so all they did is just, hey, he's here, let's just send him millions of miles away where it would take him millions of years to get back to us. Those little moments where the Fantastic Four are doing everything they can and throwing all they can at him, with the Thing throwing a gasoline truck and Johnny setting him on fire and Galactus ain't bothered. Reed showing off how smart he is. Again, I love the Reed stuff. Just wish it was more unique. Grabs a stick, goes to his back, and releases the valves where he ingests all the planet lava, probably weakening him. So, like, what a smart move by Reed Richards. But that doesn't work, and so Galactus grabs him and starts stretching him like a freaking rubber band. That was an intense scene, even if this CGI on that looked horrible. The close-ups on Pedro Pascal's face as he's stretching. Did not look the best, but whatever. It was still cool. I guess the main complaint people have is how strong Susan Storm was in those moments of being able to like wrap Galactus in her abilities and push him to where they needed him to be. That's where people are having trouble with. And I'm like, dude, the movie did everything to show you how that was possible. So one, I think of it a lot in the situation that we've had in real life. You can look them up. There's numerous stories where like a mother can lift a really heavy car just to save their child. And it's like that motherly strength you feel to protect your children. That's how I saw that scene, is her taking everything within her to do that. And even then it wasn't working because Galactus was starting to fight back, and it took the Thing knocking down buildings to keep Galactus in his place. And even then, she can't always use abilities like that because it cost her life. She died protecting Franklin. That's a really great touch, and as cliche as it was to have Franklin revive his mom, I thought the movie built up to that perfectly. The whole film, you're like, this baby's got cosmic powers. This baby has unworldly powers. How else to believe that than to see a literal baby bring back his mother from the dead? That is a beautiful and a haunting scene at the same time, because it's like, yeah, he saved his mom, he helped her, but it's like, if that's what he can do now, what's this baby gonna do when it's older? And are we going to be able to handle it? It kind of keeps that dread feeling going in those happy moments. It's a much better way to bring Sue back to life than they did in the earlier Fantastic Four movies, where just the Silver Surfer happened to have the ability to revive people. I thought that was a cop-out, and that was an eye roll. This actually worked for me. I also don't think this is the end of Galactus, dude. I mean, if you wanted Galactus to be done, well, then you do something permanent. Sending him to like a far end of the galaxy, he'll find a way back. So, okay, let's get into talk about the post-credit scenes and stuff like that. We won't talk about the very ending credit because it's just the cartoon theme song for the Fantastic Four, which is just a fun little treat. I'm not mad about it, but it's like not much to go off of. Instead, we are given a scene 4 years later. So the Fantastic Four have already been the Fantastic Four for 4 years at the start of this movie. By the mid-credit scene, we are then 4 years later, so they have been the Fantastic Four for 8 years. Kind of crazy. And while it's Sue Storm just reading a book to little Franklin, Sue gets up because she wants to get a different book for him to read, where they pick up like an obviously like advanced type of book for someone his age, but she grabs the children's book because it's like, we're gonna go light today. And as Sue is coming back, lo and behold, Dr. Doom is in their living room, but we don't get a face, we don't get a look if it's Robert Downey Jr., it's just Doom in his green cloak, holding the Doom mask, and then about to touch Franklin. Okay, a lot of thoughts, a lot of theories about all that. For one, I want to say, I can't believe this movie didn't end with the world being destroyed. As the movie was going on, I was thinking, man, it would just be weird if their planet destroyed and they were like, all right, we're just gonna go to another planet. Even if the world turned on them and was like starting to hate on them for their choice, I still don't think they would have just been okay with like, all right, let's just start fresh on another planet. This one's got heroes. Should we just go there? So I'm okay with them having survived, and it's even nice to know that they've kept surviving and are still keeping this world safe 4 years after the events of this film. But the Doctor Doom inclusion, okay, see, this is where we can go all over the place with stuff, because I'm still wondering how they're going to handle the Robert Downey Jr. storyline. It seems like they want to go the comic accurate route, because throughout the movie, we would see that all the nations except Latveria, where Victor Von Doom is from, would never show up to these meetings. clearly not loving the Fantastic Four's way of bringing the whole world in peace together. And if he has the Doctor Doom mask there, is he already scarred? Because that's one of the things of why he wears the mask. He's horribly scarred over an experiment, sometimes caused by Reed Richards. Other times because he just put on that Doctor Doom mask when it was too hot. So like my first thought is he asking Franklin to fix his face? That's why he's showing his ugly disfigured face to Franklin so Franklin can just touch him and fix him? Would not be surprised if that happened. I still think what's going to end up happening is Doom is going to take on the face of Tony Stark to kind of befriend the people of 616 and kind of use that against them to infiltrate that world. My other big theories though is we got a creative motive for this Doctor Doom, because we still don't know if this is going to be the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom that'll take over everything, or this is just a variant in their world. If this does end up being the main Doctor Doom and everything, I feel like they've set up a really good perfect motive then. He just saw the world come this close to explosion, to extinction, all because the Fantastic Four were selfish in not giving up their baby for the greater world. I think Doctor Doom is going to use that a lot to his advantage, and that's going to be his main hatred point, and thinking, you guys don't deserve this. You guys don't have what it takes to save our universe, our multiverse, which Reed does mention one point in the movie when he's like doing the little class for kids, almost like Bill Nye the Science Guy, where he's like, thanks to this equation, we do know parallel Earths exist in the multiverse. You guys want to see an explosion? So Doom maybe could have figured out that same kind of situation and knows that there's a bigger threat coming. And given the way the Fantastic Four handled the Galactus threat, they're not willing to make the big sacrifices for everyone else. Also, I think Doom is going to see they have an all-powerful godly baby that this other godly being wanted. Franklin Richards is such a powerful person, he can create universes, galaxies, planets, and Doctor Doom will most likely find a way to use that then to create Battle World, where all the multiverses come in. And I still think a lot of these concept arts are true, where we get places like Greenland, where all the green people are, including the Hulks. Doctor Doom is like this medieval ruler with Sue and Franklin by his side. I have to imagine that's what they're doing. There's no other reason why to bring in Franklin this early, and if they do use him that way, it would make sense. And maybe that's why it's taken 4 years for Doctor Doom to figure out how to even get those abilities from Franklin or take them away from him. But it still leaves me with so many questions, so many wondering how everything is. Nothing about this movie led us into the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts, and we thought maybe that would be the ending of this movie, but it's not. It looks like that actually might end up just being the middle of Avengers Doomsday, or like some people have theorized, that Excelsior does have 4 pillars, where the Excelsior ship in this Fantastic Four movie only has 3 pillars. Could that be a Fantastic Four from a completely different universe? I don't mind it, because I love this movie so much for not having such interconnectivity with the MCU, and there was nothing at the end about setting it up for the larger universe. It felt like a very contained one and done story. And in fact, I'm kind of dreading, or not really that excited now, for these characters to be brought out of the world and forced into the MCU and have to fit with everything, because what's Fantastic Four 2 gonna look like? Because I'm thinking we're getting that movie after Avengers Secret Wars, and Kevin Feige has already announced there is an MCU reboot coming, or a reset. Basically meaning Fantastic Four, X-Men, all these other characters will finally live on one planet and we'll have a unified MCU to move forward. I miss the 60s aesthetic. Is all that going to be completely gone when they're in our modern day 616 universe? Or heck, will all the characters even be alive at the same time? Like maybe they do end up in 616, but they still are only alive in the year 1960. So like Tony Stark and other characters like that aren't even born yet. I don't know. There's so many questions. I am so curious what the MCU looks like 5 years from now, but all I can tell you is this was a dang good Fantastic Four movie. I want a trilogy so bad. I want to see them interact with other characters. I just don't know how that'll look come those times. Throwing it off to you guys though. What do you think about the Fantastic Four? Your favorite moments, least favorite moments? Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films, or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.